This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, I'm honored to bring you the UFO entity Enigma. Today, we will be exploring wanderers, walk-ins, and starseeds. And we have with us Tim Swartz, the legendary, the one and only, the very prolific. We have Nick Curto, known far and wide and now globally, who has been appearing in things all over the place, which is quite awesome. Can't get enough of Nick. And then we have the star of today's show, Marc and Phyllis, and sundry puppets, maybe. And first, we will start where all good things start, with Tim Swartz.
Why, thank you, Hercules. And as always, it's a great pleasure to be with everyone tonight. So I'm going to keep my presentation somewhat brief. And, I know I always say that, but then I tend to talk on and on and on until everybody's begging me to shut up. But really, I mean, the star of tonight's show should be Marc. Yeah, since we're talking about things that he's the living example of what we're going to be discussing. But I think that for those who aren't familiar with this type of phenomena, especially walk-ins, this is something that has been recorded throughout history, and it's an extremely complicated subject. But to put it briefly, this is when the current occupant of a body is, for whatever reason, suddenly replaced by somebody else. Now, a lot of cases that have been recorded tend to deal more on a spiritual level, but then there are a lot of cases, Marc, for example, where you have a new occupant who says that they are an extraterrestrial who is now occupying a terrestrial body. But I know that when I was growing up and doing my early research on this type of phenomena, one of the first things that I ran across was the early research into what they called then split personalities. I think it's now called dissociative personality, disorder, something along those lines. But I guess I still am always going to think of it as split personalities. But the earliest research being done by a psychiatrist, especially at the turn of the 20th century, there seemed to be more of an inclination to think that some of these personalities could actually be discarnate spirits that have somehow managed to find their way into the body of the victim. And in fact, some of these early scientists were using hypnotism to try to merge these personalities together into one. In the process of doing so, a lot of times they would uncover what I think that a lot of people may call a spirit guide, kind of a central soul that was in control of everything, with that certain person. And this personality was completely different than, say, the main personality and then the dissociative personalities. This was a personality who was aware of everything that was going on with all of the personalities, and seemed to be a lot more knowledgeable about the situation and a lot of other things as well than the current personalities. There were also a lot of cases where, especially in the early days of the spiritualist movement, where you would have, especially young girls who would suddenly develop seizure disorders and would appear to die and then come back to life with a completely different personality, a personality that claimed to be somebody who had passed away rather recently, and was just as surprised as everybody else that they were now in a new body. And oftentimes that personality remained in control for the rest of their life. The old personality never reemerged. Thus, thus the walk-in, I suppose. One case that I remember that always fascinated me, I'm going to refer to my notes that I have here, was one of Lurency Venom. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. Now, this was a 13-year-old girl in 1864 in Illinois who, like I said before, suddenly started developing seizure disorders. She would have seizures, she would fall into comas, and when she would wake up, she would have the personality of somebody else. And oftentimes these personalities would acknowledge that that they were dead, that they were spirits who were taking the opportunity to possess the body of this girl since they had the chance. And finally, one of the doctors who was working on this case had a daughter who had passed away a few years previously by the name of Mary. And one of the so-called spirit controllers who had emerged that allegedly was helping this girl try to learn to develop her mediumistic abilities and to prevent just any old spirit from coming in, agreed to let his deceased daughter Mary come in and possess her body. And when she did, Mary remained for a number of months and even went as far as to go back home to the life that she lived before she passed away. Remembering, all her parents, her siblings, situations about her house. She said that the angels had told her that Lurency would remain in the spirit world while her body healed. And finally, after so many months, Mary announced to her parents that it was time for her to go, that she had to go back to the world of spirit, and that Lurency, the original occupant of the body, would come back, which she did, and seemed to be healed from her medical problems as for most of her life. I guess that occasionally Mary would resurface and present herself, but this time, as an adult, her Lurency's husband wasn't going to put up with this kind of nonsense, I guess, from what the papers read. So those types of possessions came to a stop. But you see cases like this throughout history. Most of the time, rather than being only an occasional possession, the walk-in phenomena is permanent. Once the new soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, occupies the body, that's it. It seems almost to be a case of kind of would it be a postponed reincarnation, a late arrival, so to speak, because a lot of times in these cases, the original person is rather young, usually a child, who will develop a sickness, appear to die, And then when they recover, they have a completely new personality, a personality that remembers a previous life. But unlike a lot of reincarnation cases where a child will, at a young age, remember a previous life up to a certain age, and then will forget about it. Usually by the time they're 8 years old, 10 years old, they have forgotten about their previous life and happy being a kid again. The walk-in cases, most of the time, the people never forget their previous life. They live the rest of their new life with their old memories. So we have cases like that, and now we have a lot of cases like Marc Brinkerhoff, where you have people who claim to be walk-ins from an extraterrestrial source. Now, if you look at the idea that probably our souls, our spirit reality probably knows no what's the word I'm trying to think of here, Hercules. We're all extraterrestrials probably. I doubt if we're exclusive to planet Earth. Maybe we are, and Marc can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But more than likely, our souls can exist and have existed all across the universe. But I think that there are special circumstances, for whatever reasons, that you'll have these extraterrestrial spirits occupy a body when the chance is made available for whatever reasons. And again, Marc can better elaborate on that. But I think that it's a fascinating subject, and I would love to know the reasons behind it, why or how somebody who has passed away is then able to occupy a new body that has already been born and developed, and maybe has a sickness and appears to die, and then comes back to life again. It's one of those phenomena that I have found eternally fascinating, and would love to know, as with all of us, the reasons behind it. So I've rambled on long enough, Hercules. Let's let somebody else.
No, that was very, very, very thought provoking, and certainly worth a show or two just to explore the questions that you brought up.
Oh yeah.
And in truth, our inner worlds and our outer worlds are, often very much one and the same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. And the afterlife states are very many, and there's lots of stories about where people go and how people get stuck, and how people latch on to other people. Like, for instance, I remember when I used to investigate the spirits much more often, a lot of times spirits would enter during a trauma. Or if somebody was altering their consciousness through alcohol or drugs. And I remember one time I worked in a psychiatric hospital in Queens, and I walked into the locked psychiatric unit, and somebody that was in somebody started conversing with me, and telling me things that I never met this person, but they called me by my Greek name, and they spoke a lot of stuff that again they wouldn't have known if they were just some random person. I didn't know this person. I'd never talked to them. They'd never been in my home. As far as knew, they didn't know anybody that I knew. But whatever was inside of them knew who I was and what I was doing, and it conversed with me. So you did not ramble. You brought up lots of really important stuff, and we will structure shows around your questions.
Well, there is one, when you said that reminded me, there was one case of a young woman who, and now this was somebody who, I mean, she was in her 20s and had a brief sickness and seemed to die. And then she, her body was then occupied by a woman who said that she had lived in Spain and spoke fluent Spanish when, you know, the original occupant of the body, you know, did not know any, you know, Spanish. But when she was asked about how she thought that she had gotten into this body, she said that she remembered dying and her soul floating in space. She said, you know, I was floating in space happily, and then suddenly I was back here on Earth. And she felt sad that she had taken over this other woman's body, but she said that she had no control over the situation, had no idea how it happened. You know, so I mean, that's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, yes, it most certainly is. Thank you very much for your presentation. That was awesome, and I look forward to your questions of others. Does anybody have questions to ask Tim before we proceed to Nick and his introduction to Starseeds?
Well, I could say that when I've read stories like Tim just mentioned, when they leave their body, they die some other country, let's say, they get to a frequency zone where we know on the other side is a waiting area. But if they're floating, it looks like space at times like that. And then they're drawn to a body that is available or active at the moment. So they get sucked in like a little vacuum. That's how she didn't know what happened, why she got that way. She might have thought she was someplace, but she could have been close in a hospital ward where they took her body, let's say, and was pulled towards a baby or a child or somebody who had just recently maybe passed away for a second or whatever it is, and then they get pulled into the body that they're activating again. And they come out talking in another language as well. And they remember their other family as in like another country. And so it's a fascinating stuff. But when I researched it on the other side, I found out a lot of times they're just confused for a minute. They're out of body. They're going along, we'll say wandering along, like they're going, oh, and all of a sudden they get pulled in and they're awake. So either they get pulled into a little baby that hadn't been set up yet. Usually the baby's already set up with a soul in them if they're alive. If they're kicking around in a baby board, it's the ones that just passed away, or in my case, some similar thing was stillborn. So that's how you get in. Otherwise, it's confusing if they didn't understand. But that's how when I went to the other side, I found out all these things that happen when they get pulled in. Because all those stories like Tim's talking about, I was reading back when I was 12 and in my teens to learn about reincarnation more because I knew about it, but I wanted to see what the other people are saying about it. You know, like the true life. You all know those story books, the little pocket books that would say true experiences of the unknown or past life experience or near-death experiences. I have a whole bunch of those, like Frank Edwards and all those. So it's I was studying that. So, but I went by myself to go out to find out more information about why.
But basically, Marc was validating.
Oh, I'm not talking about me.
Marc was validating what he already knew as a child and trying to find other places since his parents could not provide information to him that he knew that they didn't know. Yeah. So he found it in books.
Yeah. My father would bring home some interesting books because he worked in New York City. So he'd come back, oh, I got a pocketbook on near-death experience. So it was fun. So I still have those. But that's what I researched on the other side when I'm out of body. Hey, Nick and Hercules, remember last night's show?
Of course, yes.
I went out of body to hang with the dogmen. I saw them.
Oh,
I just had to put that in for you.
Did you do an illustration of Dogman?
I haven't done it, but yeah, I could, sure.
I think that would be amazing if you could just share with us the visual.
Oh.
Okay, another show.
Another show, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Mythic Monsters coming back, hopefully by next week, if not by July. Okay, thank you very much, Marc, for the insights and the information. Nick Curto, what can you tell us about Starseeds?
Wow, well, that's an incredible subject. They all are, all of the three categories that you've identified. You've got my attention big time. Starseeds, I have to make this personal because when I was just tiny, I would look up at the sky for hours and I would just think about what was out there, who or what was out there, more than anyone else that I knew of my age. And as I got older, that didn't go away. The interest became even more so. And of course, you can go to sci-fi, wonderful sci-fi movies that kind of sort of answer a little bit of that question, only it's our version, it's the creative version of our beings here on this planet, making it entertainment. But that's a little bit, I thought that's in the right direction a little bit, that is. When I was 12, very quickly, my parents and my sister and I were abducted, and I had put that, no, I didn't. It went out of my mind, and I think it was deliberate of the whole incident until like 35 years later, and it streamed back to me. And I don't know what mechanism did that, but it was like a switch, and suddenly I had a memory of a lot of that. And that was a striking chapter in my life to start, oh my God, that really did. And then I was, looking at Barney and Benny Hill's experience, and I'm thinking, that's not that far, and not even in the same region that we were when it happened to my family. It was just like this bolt, like, oh my God, that there's more to that story. I've always felt connected, and I've always felt that I had, and I'm not boasting, believe me, I'm not, I don't need that, but that I was feeling things of other people that other people weren't picking up. And sometimes there would be people that would seem wonderful and, well, these are terrific. And I'm thinking, no, there's something else going on. And it was deep feel. I didn't say anything, but I was thinking, this is not the real picture of who they are. And at the same time, there's other people who no one would notice. And I was thinking, that is such a gentle, kind soul. And I felt very deeply that I was right on that. And again, how am I doing that? What is taking place here? It's beyond connecting the dots. It's a feeling. I mentioned that when a couple of times I was warned that get out of there now because there's a big danger going on. I mentioned this a few times on programs, that I felt strongly that if I didn't get out, I was going to either be attacked or something awful was going to happen. This was all of a sudden. And nobody else had a clue. Nobody else was like a normal day. And I was thinking, get out and get into your safety of your apartment right now. And it was an overwhelming experience. So I can't deny that. I've talked to policemen that said, trust your own, I think I mentioned this too, trust your own instincts. When you're feeling something stronger, even though everyone else is not a clue. There's nothing around you that would say that. But if you're feeling something like that, you listen to that and you go ahead and you do what you need to do. And I absolutely believe that. And the policeman said, you bet. If there's a place where you feel uncomfortable, you feel as though you're being watched and it's not a good feeling, get out of there. Trust that. So just another thing too is that I've always felt along the way throughout my whole life that I was being not set up, but given experiences to push me along further, and that I had a mission here. And I right now, I can honestly tell everyone here, I feel that never more stronger than right now. I feel as though there's a mission that I'm being asked to do. I'm not sure exactly what that mission is, but I'm ready. I'm spiritual, and I've told Jesus, I've told God, I'm ready to do your will, I will reflect your limitless love. I'm ready to do it. Just tell me what you want. And I've always had that feeling. And I just feel as though something is prepping me for something else that's coming that's big. Okay. And I'm being very honest here. So when it comes to, do you feel these certain things going on? When you're talking about what things you would have to have in your life to feel that something is operating, I strongly do. I'm not the only one either. There's people in my Disclosure Network New York group that have had similar feelings on different areas here too. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And the sense of being here for a particular reason or for the fulfillment of a particular mission, that is very, very common with Starseeds. And as you also pointed out, Starseeds have a feeling that something's going to activate them. Something's going to happen at some point. They're going to receive some signal. And when they receive that signal, all of a sudden everything will connect and make sense, and they'll know how to proceed. So thank you for sharing your personal experiences, Nick. And does anybody have a
Pleasure.
question for Nick before we proceed to Marc?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Nick, you said when you were younger, you'd stand outside and, look at the stars and just have that kind of special feeling, and wonder if anybody else felt that way. I mean, do you think that, and not so much that you were standing outside looking at the stars, but do you think that you and your family were then kind of targeted by the UFO abduction experience that you had, because of whatever that is, whether or not you're a starseed, or if you just as Whitley Strieber said, that special people kind of glow almost on an ethereal level that attracts these things to you. Do you feel that that was the situation with you?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking it. And the answer is absolutely yes, that there's been times when I felt as though I've been watched, looked at, almost reported. I've seen UFOs from a distance, and I've commented to a particular woman that we were in a very clear sky late at night. And I said to her, there's a very bright orange light over a distant mountain. It was, and is that a tower, either a television or a radio tower? Because they would have a little light on top. And she said, Nick, there's nothing over there at all. It's dense woods. And I said, do you see it? And she said, oh, yes, I do. And at that point, literally at that moment, it started moving. To that point, it looked like it was a stationary light on a tower. I didn't see the tower, I just saw the light. I assumed it was a tower. And then, guess what? It starts moving towards us. And it took about maybe a minute and a half. It was very slow, but it went right over our heads. That could have gone anywhere. It went right over our heads. One other time, when I was in Central Park with my group, and we were trying to do a Dr. Stephen Greer meditation to contact, and we had some wonderful people in that group that night. And after we did an hour, a few people had to go home, but about 10 people stayed. And all of a sudden, the quietest member of our group screams, oh my God, turn around, look up. And we all did, and we saw 3 white lights, a little bigger than stars and bright white. And it was slightly moving. And we thought, what is going? And then we thought, is it one vehicle like a triangle with a light on each end? But when it went past the star, it blocked the star, which meant it was one vehicle. So we knew that, and it was slowly moving towards us. Again, it was very distant, but it slowly moved. And when it got right over our heads, and nobody was moving, I mean, nobody could say a word. Here it comes. It stopped. It literally stopped over us. No sound, no wind, nothing like that, for about maybe 25 seconds. And then it continued on its path northeast until it was gone. So did I feel that our group, me, was targeted? Yes. Whatever it was, they knew we were there and they responded. So yes, the answer to your question is there's moments like that, and there's others too when something's up.
Literally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Marc, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Nick?
They observe everything, Nick, as you know, and when you do your call or whatever you're doing telepathically, it's always your own friends and the crews that come towards us. I'd have to say what you're describing it's happened to us all the time since I was a kid. I've been followed by them. your friends and family, we'll call it, on the other side, and they come and they stop right over you. I was expecting you to go like this. They shut off like that, but then they continued on, and they stopped to let you know, we hear you. Because when I'm in the ships and we see what's going on, I try to tell people, and this is why I told Nick's group too, because when I was there, give a couple talks, we are far high up, way high up, miles and miles up, right? You're seeing a little dot, looks like the size of a bright star. As soon as we're overhead, because I've been in the ships and we do this, we are seeing you as if we're 5 feet or so above you.
Wow.
And I told people, don't go, you're doing that. That's cute. Wave to them, and speak, say hi. They hear you, everything you're saying, because they're like right above you here. And they can see right down to the ground and the dirt and the gravel. So people think, oh, they're miles away, they don't see us. They do. And they're letting you know, this is how we find you with your energy field. And we're trying to say acknowledgement that way. They can't come so low because it's a city. Although I've had some ships show up 15 stories up and the black helicopters came for them after they disappeared. But that was back in the 90, 89 or something like that, 91 or so. But this happens, but it's very rare in the city. So when they do come over, even though they were over you guys, their radar might not have picked them up at all. They could do that. They can shield themselves from all the radar. So you're going, oh, planes are flying by. Oh, they're not seeing them on the radar. But they're allowing only those to see who they want to see, which is what they've always said to me, to tell people. Other people could be standing near you and not see them. You know, on the street, you know, what are you looking up at? That silver ball. There's nothing there. Really, it's about an inch wide. You know, you don't see that. So this is how they do that. And it's the friends, it's their family who they're working with. And that's how they work with telepathy as well.
We've recently, Marc received a transmission, which you'll read at his next CT Universal Zone, which was basically to address the disclosure conversation that was happening down in Washington, because that was a question on the Expo UFO panel. And basically, all of these things you're talking about now these are setups. They're setups for the future, and not too distant future.
Not too distant, and that's what they test. Yeah, that's the test.
You know,
and even Nick knows our friend Diane, and she's seen her first UFOs with us when we went to the Botanical Gardens. So that was her first.
Oh.
And we took pictures in different places at the Botanical Gardens years ago. And Phyllis and I didn't notice anything in the sky. We're just taking some nice pictures. When we got them back.
But we did notice the ones we also.
Oh, not the ones with Diane. Yeah, we knew that. Remember, we took a picture of the conservatory or whatever. In the cloud was a bronze disc UFO. So when we got home, we saw them. And then we took another shot and it was over there. It was fun. So it was there that day. Probably, maybe it wasn't physical to see, but it showed up on our film. Where the other ones were physical and Diane got to see them. But I'm just saying, the reason I'm saying this is we're teaching that look, when they connect with you like that, we got the frequency, we know who you are.
And Marc, one thing you can consult with me is that send them good feelings of love and appreciation. But if you're feeling negativity or not any of that, then they are not your friends. You could consult me on that. And I have followed what your advice had given me too.
Yes.
That I feel that I say, your brothers, your sisters, I love you. I want to meet you. I do that.
And thank you. And when you look up or you're called to look up and there's nothing up in the sky above you, and they're there, invisible to you right now, just testing to see if you're going to follow through and still say, even though I don't see you, thank you for that test. Keep testing me. I will respond. They're trying to see who's listening, who's hearing, and you can't hear them with the headphones, everybody. You can't hear them while you're texting too much because you're distracted. They're trying to get people to understand, get away from these distractions, which are put out to nullify the people right now, to confuse and distract them. So I'll just go back to our little friend Diane, our good friend. She was walking home one day, she told us years ago, and she felt to turn around. But as she was thinking, she was feeling her body was already turning around and look behind her, and she was drawn to look up at a building. This is on east side near Central Park area. She looks up and there's a silver UFO there. And as soon as she saw it, she went, oh, that's how they do it. And it's like, did a little thing, went to the Central Park and disappeared. So she called us when that happened. And I said, Diane, that's how they test you. The fact that you're connected, your body was responding even before your mind said, what? People have done, they walk on and they go like this, what am I doing? And there they are. So that's part of it, Nick. Yeah.
And once that happens, the first time it happens, your life is always different. It's not the same. Just the first time that really does happen to you, it's like, okay, I got it now. Wow. So
I taught my nephew a long time ago, one of our nephews, who's very much into all that we're into. And he calls us one day and he says, Uncle Mark, I was driving on the back roads where he lives in Connecticut. And he said, I kept hearing, pull over, look at the moon. And he kept saying he knew it was something. So he goes, I can't yet. I can't pull over. So I had to wait till a pullover. He pulled over, got out of his car, van, or whatever it was, and looked at the moon. And there was a UFO. And he had a cell phone, which I don't have one of those cell phones. And he took it and he went like that. He clicked it. And as soon as he clicked it, it was in one position. He jumped to the 7 o'clock position. He got that. So he has a picture of the moon with like that moving UFO. So
wow.
I just thought, my nephew, who was like, I'm listening, but whatever, he does this. He said one day he was drawn to go out on this back front yard porch and just stare at the sky. And he said, I just did it, Uncle Mark. Like you said, I just followed through. I had a feeling, go outside and look at the sky. So I went out, looked straight out. And he says, there, I'm drawn to look at some stars and they're forming a triangle position in the sky. And he says, I don't remember that being there. So he said, I wonder if that one that's really bright is not a star. As soon as he said that, the star flared up.
Oh,
Times to say yes, and then it started moving, and then that was it.
wow.
So he responded to the test, is what I'm trying to tell people, and he sent love. He did. He sent his love. So they do that. We had other
So
people we test.
that
taught to
kid
do
would be
that.
considered a star seed.
Yeah, he is not from Earth. Yes.
And thank you so very much. Those were good questions you asked, Nick. And now you are a walk-in. You're a starseed also. How did you discover, or how did you remember that you were a walk-in?
Well, look, what we called Phyllis and I a conscious walk-in. It means I remember everything before it came, before the galaxy, this one. And when I was hovering over the hospital area where my mother-to-be was, and was called, we were searching for a body that was going to be discarded. So they set some up with people that my past time had been once or so in space. So all I can say is my father was somebody I knew from space a million years ago or so. And I told him that when I was 4 years old. But the thing is I had to get through a connection of some sort. I had to be in New York area because where Phyllis was in Connecticut. So we had to connect to be able to be close enough to connect and find each other in some
We
way.
didn't start the story the way, the reason Mark even came in
Was to get,
was because we are in the end times, and
Yeah.
this is a, and he came in to help accelerate my spiritual evolution, so I no longer had to reincarnate, since this is this will be a huge reset in about 20 years.
yeah, more, maybe.
So
or less.
that's why
Totally less.
they had to get permission for Mark to even to be able to walk in, or as you say, walk in.
We just call it transferring in. On the other side, we don't call it anything like that. But that means that a soul took off. So when I was there waiting, my mother-to-be was on the hospital bed in the emergency room, and she was having a miscarriage. And they didn't know, somebody doing that. Doctors had asked my father in the waiting room, who should we save, your wife or your kid, baby? And he said, my wife, because there was something going wrong that was really bad. Then the baby died, and electronics went crazy in the hospital room and ER. So then as I'm high up with my angel, well, our angels are also friends, even though they're not human souls or anything like that. But there are friends on those high realms, and we all work together. So she says to me, well, you want to try this one? Before that happened, I'm looking at way down, like the body, the gurney is like small from the height we're coming and looking down at. And a soul came out. We saw a soul come out of the body and come zooming up towards us. And as it passed in front of me, it was a child that became an adult energy. And as it came by, it says telepathically, baby's going to be born dead, I'm leaving. That one went. So the angel goes, you want to try this one? And I said, let me go down and see if I can work with the energy. That's all he did. Zoomed down, hovered over my mother about 3 feet, let's say 3 feet. And I just felt the energy in this little frequency of this little baby in there, even though it's dead. And frequencies are going, the machines are going crazy. I said to the angel, okay, I can go in and work at this one. you don't want to get a body that's totally trashed, like been in a car accident that's been mangled. That's not going to happen. So it's a little tiny one. So okay, I go in. So I went in. This way we connect. I can get to another time. Then we wait for the creator to send back the spark of life for the breath of the heart that will beat the heart. So I had to wait, and they're connected, listening to everything going on outside. My mother's womb sound like that, like you're muffled.
They were
And
preparing.
you can hear them.
For a
The
cesarean.
nurses are nuts. They're going, "What's going on? We don't know what happened." And then the light, the energy came, and my heart starts beating. It's like a spark of energy, like that. But you see it as a little light blast, even though you're there. And then the heartbeat. As soon as that, the machine sounds went different. And then the nurses, I can hear them talking. We don't know, everything was wrong, something went all right. We don't know what happened, but we don't know why. Telepathically, I said to the nurses, "Oh, that's because I just got in." But, didn't know they don't hear me. I was very telepathic, talking to people with telepathy and animals. So that was how that happened. As soon as that was connected in, I was connected. I went out of the body and watched them move my mother on a gurney into some doors and take her out of the emergency room because they were going to give her a C-section, and that canceled just at that moment. So I watched them. So they went out. I took off to the ship, which is the Arcanas, as we call home, and that was basically it. I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, stay out of body, come back, stay out of body, connect. I remember things from inside the womb. I remember people talking. I remember people laughing, and I'd leave and go and come back later. I remember everything from my first walking steps to what they expected me to do telepathically. I know I was asking for things when I was thirsty. They would bring it over to me. And also suckling.
You remember?
I remember everything.
You remember
Everything.
the incubator?
Oh, in the incubator. Oh, when I came out, that's right. And came out, I was very small. That's why I'm tiny, because I think this was a baby that was a little small. That even doctors even said it's like you're a premature baby, but not yet. I came in at 8 months. So my mom even told me you're very small. So they had to put me into an incubator. And I remember being in the incubator. And I remember how it was confining and claustrophobic feeling, and nobody's touching you. So telepathically, I'd be calling to people, and then I just leave the body. I just go. But as soon as people came over to look and touch you, like a nurse or somebody, they had a mask on their face. They had the hat. And I remember them looking at me, and I didn't feel a connection to these people. So I want people to know this, that you got a connection with your parent, your mom, or whoever's touched you, and you understand the connection there is a frequency of that love. When a nurse is touching you, or doctor, you're not feeling that as a baby. And now you wonder why some babies might be crying and they're scared because they don't feel the connection. So a parent should come to, if they can get into these areas. I've never been in the hospitals anymore. I don't have children or anything, but is there an incubator room where mom and dad can go and touch baby, talk to baby close up and just touch them, because that's the connection you're looking for. The feeling of the mom or the dad, the vibe is there, even our family. So I could tell people so many things, how babies see, how you don't see clearly, and why they cry at a distance. And then as soon as you pick them up and mom and dad or brother or sister, who they recognize the voice, and they see them and they get close to them, and the baby giggles because now they're seeing you this close. Now they're seeing you. Over here, it's a blur. It's amazing how the eyes work. Then the ears, you're telepathic as a baby. You're not hearing the same way. So baby screaming its lungs out, right? Baby can't hear that sound the way we hear it. So I remember these things. And I said, oh, I remember my voice coming out with baby talk, and it was loud. And I went, oh, I forgot we have to retrain everything. And I forgot we have to retrain the whole body. Because I was trying to do things. I was like, ooh, we have to retrain it all. So the first steps I remember clearly, and how they want you to come towards you, and how they give you those IQ tests. Put these blocks and cubes into things, into squares and shapes. And I remember looking at one, and I got telepathy from the doctor guy talking to my mother. I was looking at these cylinder shapes and triangular shape.
Yeah, I remember those.
And they put them in a box with the shapes. Let's see if you can match the shape at this little age of, like, whatever the age are, 1.5 or 2, I don't know. I remember looking at them and playing with them, going, oh, these are great, but they had colors, red, the orange, yellow. And I was looking at the colors being artistic-y, but telepathically I picked up on the doctor. And then looking at my mother, and he gave her some kind of weird sound. They were talking in a way, and I got, oh, he expects me to do things with these, to do stuff. So I started looking, I started putting them into their shapes, and I did it all. And so then he went, oh, yeah. He thought that was really cool because I was like, ooh. So we're telepathic as a baby, you're very telepathic. And this isn't off the UFO spectrum here, but that's what I recall that clearly. And as a walk-in, as they call it, I was totally the way I am now, but had to relearn learn as you go through school here. But I had all this other stuff and there was no way to explain it to anybody. All this space stuff. And I tried to explain to my dad. The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original old movie, I saw it around 4.5, 5 years old. I started crying. I was like, oh, I was so happy. And my father said, why are you crying? I was on the floor sitting there watching it because the ship was closing up with Gort and everything, and it would come all together. I said, because that's how it works. We have metals that have a memory. I never heard of that word before as a 5-year-old. They come together and you see no seams. And I told them, there's no seams on our places where we go. So isn't it, as a kid, if I had that kid, I'd be going, what the heck? As my parents were like, oh. So, see, today we would go, wow, that's pretty cool.
That's a Starseed.
So now we see how these things are. And I feel I'm also here to help those kids or those adults now who had feelings like that or didn't understand. Or like, what happened to my life? I've talked to people like, I don't remember anything past 5 years old, back before 5 or 7. And I could see how, because they're going through such a learning and maybe they're out of body at night too, but I feel there's a reason for everything. And so when I came in and asked, we went through 3 councils, and this one is a galactic council, to try to get information to help us to be able to get me, I'm saying us as our crew, 12 of us at the time, was more, but 12 of us at the time came to see if there's a way, working with the Galactic Center and all these people, the councils, can we get into planet Earth, even though we visited planet Earth? But no, you can't unless you had past karma there. Right now, you can't. There's a lot of souls that are trying to get in and out. And a lot of them are space souls too, so trying to get in. And so we asked if it's possible, is there a way that we can get in without the karma? And they said it's rare, but it's can happen. And that's when they said you take over one that had left. So
Right.
we knew that could be in danger. Will Robinson, accidents, things going on, arms missing, God knows what, I don't know. So we thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. So we researched it. And in 1920s, we researched the areas of how it's done. And I told my dad about this when I was about 7 or 8. I said, I tried to get in once to check it out about I don't know what year it was, but I'll describe the way it looked. And I told him about the cars I saw and what I was seeing in Turkey, actually. It was Turkey. My mother told me what you saw was Turkey, people in Turkey with the fezzes. But I still remember it clearly. It was a hospital. But a kid got hit by a car. And so we checked this out. Is this kid going to be dead? Is this how we do it? Is this how they allow it? The angels working with us. And the kid looked like he was dead. He was hit by a car, but he wasn't mangled. He just banged into the car. So I hovered over the kid, watching his expression, see if his soul's coming out. No soul's coming out. His eyes start moving, and he's waking up. And I zoomed back because I said, this is how they showed us to do this. Be ready in case the soul leaves. It's their time. You can go in right then and wake and be awake. So we tested that. So I described the cars to my dad that I saw, the car that hit the kid. And he said, Mark, you're talking about time like 1923 or 25, those cars, with the big spokes and the big black and the shiny black and the lamps on the front and all that. And I was like, wow, okay. So we pulled back again, and I waited because we realized the soul that's Phyllis today wasn't coming in until later. So we pulled back to come in a time where we can match up in the years. But this is how they work it, and this is how it's done with councils. For walk-in people.
Well, I have a question, Mark.
Or souls.
What do you think? How many people would you say are conscious walk-ins on the planet? How many people actually know they're a walk-in consciously coming?
I really don't know that number because I've met people who think they are walk-ins, but in reality they're not, because I ask them questions and I know what they connected to was their higher self. they had an experience. They were very spiritual. Maybe they were meditating. They were doing different things. Maybe fell asleep. Maybe had an out of body. But when they woke up or whatever they said, or they were meditating, they had a feeling of a conscious feeling of an awareness, and it was so much more. And I said, that's when you're connecting with your higher self aspect comes towards you, connects with you, and you feel like you have more knowledge or a feeling of more, and a feeling of God-like frequency, very loving and blissful. So they thought that was a walk-in experience, but in truth, it's not, because you would not remember a thing. If you left your body, you're on the other side, your
Okay,
body's gone.
So we've got three categories here of walk-in. We've got a regular walk-in, which is what Tim was talking about, just people that, you know, random souls kind of.
That's
a random, I'll call that a random walk-in. You've got a spiritual person who becomes more highly tuned up to their bigger selves, to their higher selves, so they have more information. They think they're walk-ins. And then there's you, who's a conscious walk-in.
And I think there's a few out there, because I met one.
You met another conscious walk-in?
Yeah, but most of them were not. Ruth Montgomery, back in 1980 or so, we were in Staten Island. We didn't see how. We were with our UFO investigators at the time who documented us in my film and everything. So we were in 1980 in Staten Island, one of the colleges there. And Ruth came, a friend brought Ruth over to me because we were watching the investigators' booth. And she was giving a lecture. So she comes up to me. I'm not very tall, but Ruth Montgomery was shorter than me. So she was about 4'10" or something. She comes up and she goes, "Oh," and this was when she was like in her 80s, maybe her 70s. She says, "Oh, you're really a walk-in." I was like, let's say anyway.
The term walk-in. A lot of people know about.
Yeah, I think it was Ruth, right? With Strangers Among Us. So she says, "Oh, I've met so many different people who think they are, but they're not. I've met one other, but you're the first one I've met after many, many years, and you're not from here." She said, "You're from space. I see it in your energy. UFOs, spaceships, you know, outer space feeling." And psychics who are super psychics like Ingo, they saw that, and Ingo saw my true self within me anyway. But the thing is, she said all that. And she said, "I am so glad to have met you." And then she wanted to know a little bit about my story. But that was about it. She was that. And then we have Ingo Swan, who actually, when I first met him, knew. He says, "So," he's talking about how it took me a lot of energy, my energy to compress myself to get into the body inside my mom's tummy. And he knew information no one knew, only Phyllis and I knew. So he just described everything and how I got in. And he said, "Did it make you feel claustrophobic?" I said, years later, I got in a situation where I was in a box that they put you in, they sat on and didn't let me out of this wooden thing. And suddenly it all flashed in and I was totally claustrophobic. So that's the one thing that did it to me, is when I compressed my energy into this tiny little baby in my mom. But Ingo said, "I see you in there. And you are your own higher self here. You're the first one I've met like that. You're your own higher self." I said, "You see me in here?" He says, "Oh, sweetheart, I see you." And I pointed to one of my pictures similar to this one, of where he sees who I am, but it was a pastel that I had. And so he said, "That's you right there looking at me." And I said, "Ingo, when I'm out of body, it's me that way. So people who see me or met me out of body, I'm like 8 feet tall or whatever we can compress to." But that's a conscious walk, and that's the only way Phyllis and I can say, remembering the past before we came. I can talk about the galaxy, El Siglian we came from, and all these other places, the planets. I told my dad about them at 4 years old.
Well, you know what, the other thing that I think is
and how
also,
there's 12 planets in your solar system.
You mentioned it yesterday, actually, that when you died, that was one more time when you realized you wouldn't have enough time to find another.
Oh, yes, guys.
7 years
I'll
old.
bring that up too. Thanks, Phyllis. So that was Nick and Hercules. We talked about it last night for quickly, but when I drowned at 7 years old, somebody drowned me, not my brother, not somebody else. Didn't know they drowned me, but they did. I was always underwater. So what happened is I was floating out. First, warmth engulfs you, and 3D aspects occur. Even though I probably was breathing water in and was flowing into me, I noticed things happening underwater and how everything was 3D, and the blissful love and euphoric bliss of God came and filled me with warmth and love. So I as I was having, I went, uh-oh, this isn't good. My hands are floating, and I'm going out of body, like floating up. Then I get above the water, and I'm watching my brother and this other kid who held me underwater with his foot. I'm floating further and further out, and I'm like, uh-oh, in my head going, uh-oh, they're going to be upset, going to be mad, And I'm going up, and I look, and I see the sun back here, and I'm looking at this bright light in front of me, which is huge, like 20-foot diameter, way up in the sky. Superimposed on top of the sky, you look at. I see the 3D effects of all the leaves of the trees I'm passing by and through, and everything is 3D and love and glowing, the energy of the tree. My angel's right here by my right side, and she's with me, and I'm telepathic, and we're talking like this, telepathy, and I'm heading, and I'm seeing that light, and I stopped. I said, no, and we both stopped, and I said, you know that if I go through that, we don't come back. We're going off back home, and I can't get back. And I said, if I go through there, I won't have enough time to come back to get another body. There'll be no time left. That's the reason for the future that's happening on planet Earth. That's why I said that. And I said, and I was like 7 years old in Earth time, So I said,
on that note,
back down.
Wrapping up and make it a to be continued because it's
Okay,
already.
I went back down and got in the body.
And I
Everything.
want folks to ask you questions if they can. Anybody have a question for Marc? Yes, Nick.
Mark, I just wanted to run past you one thing that happened, that when I was born, because you mentioned that experience, which wow. But what I remember something that I was all of a sudden from a warmth, I was on a cold slab, something hard and cold, and it shocked the heck out of me. And the other thing I remember was I guess when I was in the womb, I was protected. And when I was out of the womb, just literally out, I felt as though, what happened now? Because I don't feel a protection of walls or anything. And it bothered me. I just wanted to wave that past you, because you touched a point here that I remember.
That's early consciousness.
That's super great. You are definitely, you're not from Earth, as you know, but that memory is a clear one. You were touched probably into that metal thing they put people on, or the kids on, or they put them down to clip their umbilical cord. And
it was cold and hard, and I remember it was shocking. It was shocking, yeah. And again, the feeling that I wasn't protected anymore, and the fact that I didn't know where the walls were, or if there were walls, and that was very scary.
That's why they wrap the little bunting around the child, the Native Americans too. They wrap them like that to get that compression, that feeling of closeness again and warmth. It's instinctual, isn't it, with the human race, right? They just
absolutely
bundle the little baby so it feels the closeness it just came from again. But that's important when they put them on top of mom, so they can hear that heartbeat and put it near their chest, because that's important, guys. It really is. That's important. If mom should die, who's ever there as a father, or who's ever there, should take baby and put them on their chest, take your shirt off, put the flesh right there, baby, so they can feel and hear the heartbeat, because that's what we hear very loudly inside here. You'll hear the thumping sound, and you hear all the bodily sounds, but their thumping is in sync with your heart too. We hear that, so that's what makes them comforted. And I think that's what people should know when baby's crying and is feeling whatever they're doing. Put them on your chest and start talking to them, and talk to them gently, because this is the sounds we hear when we're inside, talking slowly, gently like that. And if you have beautiful music, put the music on, because we hear the music, the music, Shakespeare, whatever you got. I pick up the music. Mozart, anybody's, Steve Halpern, anybody got something, guitar, something.
Barry Manilow, who knows?
Sure. Do not play hard rock or steel rock.
I take it back.
No, nothing hard, heavy metal, nothing like that. That comes,
no.
Energy comes in. It's true. It's really true. But
I wonder, Mark, I'm just wondering, does the medical profession know what you just said? Do they act?
We doubt it.
I wish I have nurse friends, but I don't talk.
We doubt it.
I think I'm supposed to say these things. Maybe nurses are listening. We do have friends who are nurses, but there's some things that happen, and this is the things I remember when they put me on my mom. when they put me near her, my right, put me like that, or even when they put you like this, somehow to get you near. And Hercules being a dad, he probably knows this. Yeah, Hercules, you and Tim too, right? You guys know this. You put baby near you, and he calms them down and calms them down, and holding them warmth. So that's none of Native Americans used to put baby on the back, right? Was that who's holder? But you know, the baby was wrapped in the way that they wrapped the baby in the hospital, or the Hebrews wrapped the baby in the old ways, in the ancient time. They put the little arms somehow, I think, crossed. Maybe, I don't know. I've never done it. Is this how they do it, Hercules? They wrap baby, put their little arms, and they wrap the little blankie around them, and so they're comforted. Maybe a little blankie here. I don't know. But this is how I know that this makes people feel comfortable.
And you know what? Right now, contemporary human adults, you know what they're selling now? The weight blankets, the blankets that have weights built in. And I think that's part of what you're saying, because when people have a weighted blanket, they feel comforted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, like wintertime, you want more blankets on top of something that makes you feel warm and cozy. Exactly. Yep. That's the memory, your cellular memory from your babyhood.
Yep.
But you know what? Everybody's let's say a starseed. I'll say that because to me, everyone is everywhere. We are everywhere. We've been every place.
Same way, like we're all from somewhere, and eternity is a very long time, and we've been here and everywhere. Some people remember others, but we do have that in us already. We're all joined in that type of experience. Tim, do you have any questions?
Everybody's a wanderer too, Hercules, like you were talking about before. They're all moving. They're all wandering in different ways, but they got their purpose where they're going. And everybody has a purpose. You're all born for a reason. That's why you shouldn't commit suicide, everyone listening. Please don't. You have a reason to be here.
Yes, we do. Tim, you have any last minute questions you'd like to ask Marc or anybody?
Well, I don't know how much time we have left here. Do we have enough time for a question, Hercules?
Yes, yes, we do. I put it till 10:30. I figured in case we needed the extra time. So we have half an hour.
Well, the question that I have, Marc, is you were talking about how you had initially been was looking at a body in Turkey in the 1920s. But then decided, because your wife was going to appear, a little bit later, that you should wait. I was under the impression that, outside of our, current time, space continuum, that realm is timeless. So, I mean, is there the ability to then almost, instantaneously, come to the future timeline, for your body, or because you made the mention, I had to wait around. Are you just putting that in like a human perspective, or is it really just you could appear at this time or that time? It doesn't really make a difference because it's timeless outside of the Earth time realm.
Sure. Way outside on Earth time realm, it's timeless on the higher dimensions of 10th, 9th, 8th up there. When we work within these frequencies around this planet or any planet in this first plane, we have time and we see time, and we travel back and forth in time with the ships that we use as well. But what they did is they set up things. They see your story. They see what you're coming in to do, because this is all set up on the other side. Before you take the life you're coming into, the body you're going to come into. So that's why sometimes you might miss some things you did in this life, and you get out of those life. In the next life, you might come through another time, 100 years from now, maybe, or 300, and you say, well, I'm going to cover some of those things I missed another time just to get that done. Not always do you have to come back to reincarnate or incarnate anywhere. We're trying to help people with that, because sometimes people just keep coming back because they're drawn to come back to family, grandchildren, or just keep coming back for its fun, whatever they're doing. But we have a way of seeing the time, and we work with the archangels, different angels. So it's not just us as souls doing that. We're working with councils and different ones, and they actually have a time frequency they can see. And since we've worked through that, and I've seen it on the other side, being out there, I saw how we do it. And there's no way to explain it because you want to think to clocks. But in reality, it's a frequency of effects that occurs. And they can see the patterns, the way they're going to come out. And they can see patterns of negativity, or patterns of positivity, things that could go wrong or things that can go. So when we think of these, let's say UFOs showed up just at the right time to take people and levitate them out of a giant monsoon or a tidal wave coming for them, let's say, just imagine. And you go, how did they, well, we knew to do that. We could come through, we could see these trauma things are going to be happening. And that's why there's no way to say, oh, it's going to happen exactly 10 years from now. The timing is creator's timing, although we know the cycles that have been set up on the physical densities for these systems and planetary systems and solar stars as well. So we go by those timings. But when I came in to test, we could only do a few tests to just kind of get a feel of what happens. And the angels were working with me and saying, this is kind of what it's like. Stay hovered about this height, just stay above that, and give the soul a chance to acclimate. If it's leaving, it will leave. And when it leaves, you can go down and get in. But this kid woke up. So he didn't die. He wasn't planning to die. But it was a maybe if he could have, because he could have been hit in a different way, they say. So I pulled back and I went back home to the ship. And as there we discussed more. And I didn't come back looking for more tests. I didn't do that because then World War II showed up. And we were coming through with our craft at times. I was in one of the craft over the White House in 1951, 52, around the different ships that were coming over as a flyby. That was not Earth. I know they're trying to promote that was Earth ships. It's not Earth ships. It was us and the crews working with the Ashtar frequencies and those people there. I told my dad when I saw one of the photographs, he had a book he went by, and I said, oh, that's that time I was here. I flew by when I was in that ship over on the left. And he went, what? So I'm a little kid saying these things to him. And when he read to me Betty and Barney Hill story, I think I was about 9 or so, 10 at the most. And I said to him, oh, no, I was very young. I said, oh, I'm going to meet her someday. And he goes, really? You don't even know where she lives. I said, I don't know. They'll arrange it. I'll meet her someday. You know, I met her in 1976, became friends with her, and we corresponded, and we stayed did we stay 2 weeks with her?
Or maybe at least a week.
A week with her, maybe a week with Stella. Stella Lansing was another contactee who I made friends with in 76. And she was taking film, and I took pictures, and we had similar things. But enough of that. But this is how my father, when I told him what was going to happen, Betty Hill invited me to come over to her house. And that was with one of my investigators before I met Phyllis. Like in 1977. And he told me, he says, you know, you told me that back in 1961, you're going to meet her. And he said, then I started meeting Ingo. Other things happened. I told him I'm going to meet this man someday. Ingo Swan, 1976. I meet him in 1993 or something. So he says to me one time, he passed on 1985. He says, everybody you say you're going to meet, you do. I said, they arrange it. And when they told me, I'm going to meet a person that's going to be like more than my best friend. I didn't know what sex I was looking for, but I said, okay, I'm open. Let me know. I thought I'll have a good friend. Well, I did find a friend, but then it was Phyllis, who I saw in 1976 sitting next to me in a car in Florida in a vision, a lucid, real vision, when they told me, be prepared, the time is coming. Because I kept asking, I said, well, am I going to meet this person? When are we going to meet this person? And they gave me the vision. So now I know what Phyllis looked like, but I had no idea who she was and where she lived or where I was going. So I said, you who have the steerage of my course, guide my sails, you let me. Then they said, go back to New York State, because in the vision, I saw pine trees on the side of the road. I was driving in Tampa on a highway, but there were some trees and pine trees, so I knew how to go back north. And that's when we met in 78, and we were going to Betty Hills.
Well, we met
and
through
we had
Tim
the exact vision.
We met through Tim Beckley. So just a homage to Tim.
Homage to Tim. It was through Tim that I came to New York in 1978, March 3rd, to talk with Steven Spielberg's people about a movie he was making about a young child who meets an extraterrestrial. That's the benevolent. And that's how they used all my words, home. They used everything I was talking about, and they give you no credit. So, but I was naive. I didn't know. I said to him, don't you have to sign a contract here? You're using all my information. You tape recorded to me. You wrote down everything I said. And they went, no. I said, what about the extraterrestrials? He's going to talk about the way they look, the way I saw them, 9 feet tall, blah, blah. Oh no, he's gonna make up his own extraterrestrial. So they gave me some money for my train travel. And then they used everything. They can one when I watched it. But you know, guys, we're all from someplace. And that's everybody has to know you've been in other galaxies, you've been in other universes. You just can't remember it because right here you're focused for here. So the times that we saw Tim, when we saw that, and they said we had a located person that was somebody I knew from my past. Well, we only came up with my father, and it was 1950. He got married in 43 or something, and I thought, well, we got this timing right. We can go through, and they said, well, there's going to be some problems. So my mother had many miscarriages. Then first came my brother, then came these miscarriages. Then she took medicine. Then I was able to come in, even though it was a miscarriage. It was going to be another miscarriage. After me, miscarriage. So it was a chance. And when my parents, when I told my dad all about who I was and where I came from, he didn't tell my mother, but I tried to tell my mother. But I did tell her when I came in. And she agreed that no one knows this information, only me, and how many doctors and how many nurses were there. And so I had all that info for her. So I was around April of 1953. So what happens is I get through, and now I'm in. And as I'm growing, I know I have something I'm supposed to do. And I said to my dad, I think I'm supposed to use my artwork somehow. And I was 4 years old, 4.5. I said something like that. He told me new information in space that he had no knowledge of. He says, how many planets in the system? I said, 12. And I said to him as a 4.5, I said, I'm including the big one that blew up. That was in between the other large planet and the smaller red one. He goes, the asteroid belt? I went, okay. So I asked him how many planets. He said, we have. He said 9. And I went, and he named all the planets. I went, no, there's 2 more out there, but I'm going to include the other one that blew up too. So there was 12. But and I told him the moon was hollow and there was a ship inside it. That's train. I was telling him all that, and he would say, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I go there. I was 5 years old. I'm going out of body to the moon, and seeing the beings there." So when they're talking about these reptilians being in the moon, I didn't see reptilians, but I did see beings that were not human looking, but were humanoid, and there were some that looked very human like us. That's the ones that work around the planet. So I'm just telling people that's what's out there. So we did have a timeline, guys, and we can work with time for you to put into another time.
Time travel is definitely on the list of things we'll be looking at later this year. How can folks reach you? And we'll start with Tim. How can folks find you and reach you and join your explorations?
Sure. Well, if you want to read my books, they're all available on Amazon.com. Just go and type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure. My website is conspiracyjournal.com, and I have to say that that when we say conspiracy, it's kind of I kind of preface this now by saying, all the fun conspiracies, none of the political junk. Conspiracies really gotten a bad name anymore, and I understand completely. But yeah, my website conspiracyjournal.com. I mean, it deals more with the subjects that we talk about, on these shows. I mean, UFOs, ghost hauntings, cryptid creatures, time travel, all the interesting stuff, and we really do. We really avoid the political stuff because it's just it's become a bit of quicksand now. But yeah, those are the best ways, and you'll find on my website ways to get a hold of me through email if you so desire.
And Tim's a very prolific writer, and there's tons of books, and I'm in 20 of them. So,
wow, 20!
Yeah,
that's great.
Nick.
Yes, sir. They can get me by my email. I'm going to give you that. It is NICKNYNY1, and that's the numeral 1, not ONE, but the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Again, NICKNYNY1 at gmail.com. Any questions, comments, we'd welcome that. The Disclosure Network New York is going on the 22nd year of 2 meetings a month, either by face-to-face meetings, or now we're doing Zoom meetings until fall. And we have an amazing group of people. Absolutely, it's a blessing to have them, and they are deep researchers, and we share that information. 2 meetings on Zoom per month, and that goes throughout the entire year.
Thank you so very much. And last but certainly not least, Marc and Phyllis, we saw none of you today. No foot, no hand. There we go.
The puppet can come in. The little puppet.
Let's see, okay.
Victory.
Peace.
Okay. Oh, peace.
I don't know, I get confused.
Well, you can get us on intergalacticmission.com, universalzone.com, markbrinkerhoff.com. That's an art site. You see Cheetah running across the top. And Marc Brinkerhoff YouTube and Marc Brinkerhoff Facebook, and the email is the same. Marc, and with a C, Brinkerhoff, BRINKERHOFF at yahoo.com.
For consultations.
And we have consultations I do with spiritual consultations for people call readings, but I do something different. I get your higher self, your archangel, your angels' names. I keep saying archangel, I mean guardian angels' names and your oversoul's names. And we get past life and anything else, the dream interpretation. I get downloads of dream interpretation for people. That blows my mind when it happens too. So that's what I do.
And since you're putting together your information into books now, I think you really should write the romance of Marc and Phyllis, because you've shared it. And I think it will make a wonderful story with.
Somebody said that to us.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Are you doing that? Are you guys doing that?
No, but we might do it because people have said it's like a weird romantic comedy. Nope, I don't know what.
Comedy, yes.
Yes, comedy.
We've got 4 books almost written.
4, but we're finishing our symbols book first, and then we have another one called Messages from Sananda.
And we also have.
And information he's been giving to me about where he disappeared for those years, all this other stuff, because we're trying to help the people understand there's so much misinformation out there. And he said, if you're going to, there's a lot of beings that are out there, we'll say on the other side playing games. I don't want to say that they're not all fallen beings. There are some just trapped people that are just hanging out, making believe they're ascended masters or people like that. So there's people using name and giving false stories. So there's channelers, and I'm not a channel. I just listen to crew, but I see remotely right 3D here, my crew when I'm talking. So I could be in 2 places at once. So when I talk to the Sananda, I talk to him like this, but I'm on the ship, even though I'm sitting here, I'm on the ship. So it's mental. As a kid, I called it mental out of body, mental travel. Ingo told me, I didn't have names, so I had made these names up for myself. I'm mentally traveling and I'm there. Yeah. So Ingo told me, well, that's a form of remote viewing, but that's a really good one. So one time he wouldn't play games with me with remote viewing, and he was doing it with other people. And I said, you never play with me with the remote viewing. He says, Marc, I don't need to, you do it. So well. So now I said, oh, but okay, so that's how I see. And
well, that's how you do your
if we did
readings.
a book like that, I'm trying to help people so much
We're also
to get
doing-
information before they leave this planet, because we
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. People could die tomorrow. I don't know, walking down the street, we don't know. So I'm trying to get information to remember before you leave. If you leave the body, permanently leave the body, when you get to the other side, it can be very confusing and strange. Be ready and prepared to have the questions and curiosity asked before you leave. And when you get there, to ask. Ask for Yehoshua. Ask for your guardian angels to show up. Ask for information, because they won't show up. It's free will. They don't give it to you. You'll suddenly find yourself in a nice, pleasant area in your neighborhood or something from 1960s or whatever, you were happy. And they get confusing. And so you got to have questions to ask. Say, like Tim did, Tim Beckley. He said, how can I get to meet Ashtar? He asked the angel, oh, come with us. So this is what they do. Because the first level people get into in a heaven realm is not exactly what you expect. It's just regular, like here. And that's why souls get confused when they die and they're trapped and haunting their houses or something. They had no belief system. They weren't sure about anything. So I'm trying to help the atheists who don't believe in anything. When you get out of body, you might be in a coffin and you're laying there and you get out and you're walking around Earth right here. So they go home to the fastest place they can remember first, because wherever you think you go.
We would love to do a show on that topic.
I'm sorry going into that. Sorry about that.
That's a.
We will most certainly do that. Where we're going with this particular show is going to remain monthly. It's going to focus on UFO entities. Right now, it's like a year and a half worth of UFO entity types. And I've added a few to it. So as soon as we finish them all, we'll start with the grays again, and we'll do the cycle over. By then, we'll all have gathered more information and insight, and we'll get more people. As you know, I have a thing for cosmic spiritualities, and all of you except Tim are on our cosmic spirituality shows. I'm starting something that I did years ago, Nick will remember, where we had dialogues. So we had people from different cosmic spiritualities discussing issues together. We started that again, a couple of test shows, and I'm starting it this week with Michael and Diane. So this way we'll just start, and then we'll get everybody together and ask their space beings to give us insight on particular topics. And I'm starting something that is pretty esoteric and pretty, I guess, narrow, in that there are other people like me who are Olympians. So I've come across some of them, and some of them are willing to talk about it. So I did a few shows on that. I'll be doing more shows on that as well. It touches on a lot of the topics that you said you want to cover. So you're all invited to play on any and every show you want. Mythic Monsters continue, where we discuss different cryptids and so forth. So we have a lot of adventures ahead. I want to thank all of you. I want to wish you all a happy Father's Day, to yourselves if you're fathers, and to your fathers and all the father figures in your life. And thank you for spending this day sharing your insights and your information.
The ultimate father, our creator.
I wish Zeus a happy Father's Day on Facebook today too. So there we go.
Only one, right?
Take care, everybody. Have a nice, wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.
Much love to everybody. Much love this
Bye-bye.
planet and everywhere. Much love.
Night-night.
Good night.